The story begins with a simple but powerful idea. A person's life is strongly influenced by the way they think. Many successful individuals have shown that thoughts can shape destiny. When people believe in their potential, they often find the motivation and courage to pursue their goals. However, many others struggle in life because they underestimate themselves or focus only on their limitations. Instead of recognizing their abilities, they assume they have nothing valuable to offer the world. This mindset quietly holds them back and keeps them from discovering opportunities around them. The story introduces this important lesson before revealing the experience of a man whose life changed completely after he began to think differently. Through his journey, we learn that success often starts with a shift in perspective. When people change the way they see themselves and their possibilities, their future can begin to change as well. At a crowded railway station, there lived a poor beggar who spent his days asking travelers for money. Every morning he would sit near the platform where passengers waited for their trains. With tired eyes and worn clothes, he stretched out his hand, hoping someone would show him a little kindness. This routine had become his entire life. He believed begging was the only way he could survive, and he never imagined doing anything different. Most people passed by without noticing him, while a few dropped coins into his hand out of pity. Day after day, his life repeated in the same way, without change or hope. The beggar never questioned this life because he thought he had nothing else to offer the world, and this belief quietly kept him trapped in the same situation. One day, while sitting at the railway station as usual, the beggar noticed a well-dressed businessman stepping onto the platform. The man looked confident and successful, wearing an elegant suit that immediately caught the beggar's attention. Seeing him, the beggar quickly thought that this man must be wealthy and generous. With hope in his heart, he approached the businessman and stretched out his hand, expecting to receive some money. However, instead of simply giving him coins, the businessman asked him an unexpected question. He calmly asked whether the beggar had ever given something to others instead of always taking. The question surprised the beggar and left him speechless because he had never thought about it before. In that moment, a small seed of reflection was planted in his mind. Sometimes one question can change everything. Change your mindset, change your life. The beggar felt confused by the businessman's question. He had always believed that he was simply a poor man who depended on the kindness of others. With a humble voice, he explained that he was only a beggar and had nothing to offer anyone. Hearing this, the businessman gently smiled and shared an important idea. He said that in life, everything works through exchange. People receive something because they are able to give something in return. If someone believes they have nothing to offer, it becomes difficult for others to give them anything. After saying these words, the businessman calmly boarded his train and left the station. The beggar remained standing there deeply surprised. For the first time in his life, he began to question his own thinking and wonder whether the businessman's words might actually be true. After the businessman left, the beggar remained standing quietly on the platform. His mind kept repeating the words he had just heard. No one had ever spoken to him like that before. At first, he felt confused, but slowly those words began to make him think more deeply about his life. He realized that for many years, he had only focused on asking others for help without giving anything in return. Perhaps that was the reason why people rarely gave him much attention or support. That night, the beggar could not sleep. The businessman's message echoed in his mind again and again. If you want to receive something, you must first give something. For the first time in his life, the beggar started to question his old habits and wondered whether he could change his situation by changing the way he acted. A few days later, the beggar stopped asking people for money and spent most of his time thinking about the businessman's words. He kept asking himself an important question: what could he possibly give to others when he believed he had nothing? While sitting near the railway tracks one afternoon, he suddenly noticed a small patch of wildflowers growing beside the platform. Their bright colors caught his attention and gave him an idea. What if he offered people a flower whenever they gave him a coin? It was a simple gesture, but it meant he was no longer only taking. With renewed determination, he gathered some flowers and prepared to try something new. Sometimes success begins with a small change in thinking. Develop a success mindset, and even the smallest opportunity can transform your future. The next day, the beggar returned to his usual place at the railway station, but this time, he brought a handful of wildflowers with him. Whenever someone gave him a coin, he smiled and gently offered them a flower in return. At first, he was unsure how people would react. To his surprise, many passengers happily accepted the flowers. Some even smiled warmly and thanked him for the small gift. As the days passed, he noticed something interesting. More people were willing to give him money than before. It seemed that when people received something, even something simple like a flower, they felt happier to give. The beggar slowly realized an important truth: people value exchange. By offering something small, he had changed the way people saw him and the way they treated him. One day, while the beggar was handing out flowers in exchange for coins, he suddenly noticed the same businessman sitting on a train at its station. Excited and grateful, he quickly walked toward him with confidence. This time, he no longer felt like a helpless beggar. Smiling, he told the businessman that he now had something to offer. If the businessman gave him money, he would gladly give a flower in return. The businessman looked at him with approval, handed him some cash, and accepted the flowers. With a warm smile, he said that the beggar had finally understood the true meaning of exchange. In that moment, the beggar felt something change inside him. For the first time, he realized he was not just asking for help anymore. He was creating value and participating in a simple form of business. After meeting the businessman again, the former beggar stood quietly and reflected on everything that had happened. A powerful realization began to grow inside his mind. He understood that people were no longer giving him money out of pity. Instead, they were paying for the flowers he offered. This simple exchange made him see himself in a completely different way. He was not just a beggar anymore. He was someone providing value to others. With excitement and confidence, he decided to leave the railway station and change his life. He would no longer rely on begging but would start building something of his own. In that moment, his mindset truly transformed. This moment reminds us of an important life lesson. When people recognize their value and change the way they think, new opportunities begin to appear. 6 months later, something remarkable happened at the same railway station where the beggar once lived. Two well-dressed men met there and greeted each other with a handshake. One of them looked closely at the other and felt a strange sense of familiarity. After a moment, he asked politely if they had met before. The other man smiled and reminded him of their previous encounters at that very station. Suddenly, the businessman recognized him with great surprise. He realized that the man standing confidently before him was the same beggar he had once spoken to months earlier. But now everything about him had changed. He looked confident, successful, and well-dressed. The former beggar explained that he now owned a growing flower business and was traveling to expand it further, proving that his life had truly transformed. The businessman listened with great interest as the former beggar shared his story. He explained that the simple conversation they once had at the railway station had completely changed his perspective on life. Before that moment, he had always believed he was powerless and had nothing to offer the world. But after reflecting on the businessman's words, he realized that everyone has something valuable they can give. By offering flowers in exchange for coins, he discovered a new sense of dignity and purpose. That small idea gradually grew into a real business. Now he was no longer depending on sympathy from strangers, but building his own future through effort and creativity. The businessman was impressed and happy to see how a simple change in mindset had transformed the man's entire life.